In this video, we're looking at variables within an experiment. First thing you have to know is that an independent variable is what you change on purpose. So you have to look at what in the experiment are you actually testing? What do you actually mean to change and test about and know about your experiment? A dependent variable is what changes because of you. So when you changed your independent variable, what happened? What's the result of your experiment? You can think of these two as cause and effect. Whatever happens here is going to affect what happens in your dependent variable. The control, it's what is a trial, where all variables are held constant or they don't change. This is usually the part of the experiment where you look at what has been happening before I go and I change something. So what happens without changing the independent variable? A constant is when all variables stay the same. Using these notes, we're going to answer questions about our example experiment. Let's read through it really quick first. We'll read through it first. Every couple of weeks, the teacher has to buy a new goldfish after the earlier one has died. The class comes up with a hypothesis that the goldfish is not getting the right amount of food. The class conducts the experiment below. They ask the question, why does the class goldfish keep dying? The students decide to do some research and come up with 5 reasons why goldfish often die. 1, poor water quality. 2, a disease commonly found in pet store fish. 3, overfeeding or underfeeding. 4, bacteria found in fish tanks that are not cleaned properly. And 5, a parasitic infection. The class decides that they may be underfeeding their goldfish, so they're going to test number 3. They come up with the hypothesis that if we feed the goldfish every other day, then it will live longer. The class gets 2 goldfish from the pet store. 1 goldfish is fed daily, like normal. The other goldfish is fed every other day. The class decided not to change the type of fish, tank size, water, or where the goldfish lived in the classroom in any way. After a couple of weeks, the goldfish that was fed daily died, and the goldfish that was fed every other day was still alive. For conclusion, the class concluded that they had been overfeeding the goldfish, and their hypothesis was correct. The class knew that other classes in the school had also, the class knew that other classes in the school also had pet fish and decided to write an article for their school newspaper sharing their experiment so that the other classes knew how to better care for their fish. In this experiment, we need to find the independent variable. Remember, the independent variable is what we change. So because they decided that they were overfeeding or underfeeding their fish, they decided to change the amount of food. We can find that here. 1 fish is fed daily, and the other fish is fed every other day. So then what was the dependent variable? What changed based on the amount of food? If we look down at the bottom, after a couple of weeks, 1 goldfish, the one that was fed daily, died, and the other goldfish that was fed every other day was still alive. That tells us that the dependent variable, what depended on us changing our independent, was the lifespan of the fish. Number 3 asks us what was the control in the experiment, or in other words, what stayed the same, or what was the experiment like before we changed it. If we look in our experiment, it tells us that 1 goldfish is fed daily like normal. That means This is what happens every day without performing the experiment. So this would be our control. After we changed how often the fish was fed, or the amount of food the fish got, we need to look at our constants next. These are the things that stayed the same in the experiment after we changed our independent variable. If we look in our experiment once again, it says the class decided not to change the type of fish, the tank size, water, or where the fish lived in the classroom in any way. These are our constants. These are the things that we kept the same. And lastly, what can the class do to better prove the results of this experiment? In order to better improve an experiment, in order to prove that you are correct, you need to repeat this experiment at least 3 times. I also just want to point out that you'll notice that there are only 6 steps here. We have, where are we? Our question, research, the hypothesis, the experiment, the conclusion, and sharing. These would normally be 6 and 7. I did skip analyzing data for lack of space.